Welcome to the Shoco Wellness Leadership Series, session number 1. Today we're gathered here to talk about become aware that you are an observer. My name is Carolina Lopez Paz, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself first so that we can get acquainted. I am Colombia. I was born in Colombia. I came to Aruba at the age of 10. And since then, I've been working very hard on all my languages and different skills to be probably an inspiration to others and also to achieve the goals I have set in my life for myself. So I'm currently a lawyer. I studied in the Netherlands, and I'm also a transformational coach. And as a transformational coach, what I do is that I help and assist people in getting to know themselves and stepping into the best version of themselves. I also love the topic of leadership, and that's why I'm here with you guys today to tell you a little bit about some insights on the first steps to become a better leader, and that is creating awareness about ourselves. So to start off, let me see. What I want to tell you today or now is what you can expect in this session. This session is only here to create awareness. We are here to create awareness about the fact that you and I and all of us are an observer. What that is, what that entails, we're just going to talk about that in a little bit and throughout the presentation. But just keep that in mind. We're also going to talk about the fact that you have the power to transform who you are. And we're also going to talk about the fact that we're all interpretive beings. What does that mean? That we see the world through our own lenses. And I'll get into that in a little bit as well. All the next steps after we have become aware of all of this is, for example, that we can change ourselves and how we can actually achieve that transformation, that change of ourselves. That is not going to be a topic of this discussion. Okay, so this is just to set up your expectations so that we know what we're actually going to be discussing today. First of all, since we're talking about leadership, I want to introduce you with this. In today's world, we have a challenge in leadership. As a lawyer, I've been working as a lawyer for about 10 years. One second, I've got a technical problem right now. I'm going to go back to the previous slide. 1 second. See if I can achieve that. Here we are. So, as I was saying, as a lawyer, I've been in business for about 10 years, and I deal with many professionals in the industry of the hotels. I deal with directors and managers of other law firms as well, of banks, of accountant offices, and so on and so forth. And what I've actually seen throughout the years is that there is a challenge in leadership. Why? Because they actually lack leadership skills. Regardless of their position, regardless of the degree they have, regardless of how smart they are, there seems to be a gap between the skills they have and their ability to lead their team and to lead other people. So we're living, and as you know this better than I do because you're far younger than me, and you know that the world is moving super, super fast. We can see that very, very easily from the social media, from all the information that goes around, and the fact that the society is moving so fast is actually forcing companies to become conscious enterprises. Why? Because people like you guys who are the next generation, you don't accept hierarchy as easily. You guys are looking for something else, something more in life than only, for example, having a great job. When you're finished with your studies, I'm sure what you're also going to look for is something that fulfills your heart, something that serves others. You're going to want to work in an environment which is inspiring to you. You're going to want to probably work in an environment where other people help you and where others don't only give you instructions and where you have to do and follow those instructions just because somebody has told you to do so. So people like you, people like me start questioning hierarchy. We start questioning probably our managers and the leaders in our firm and in our society. So with the time, with decades going forward, moving, and we have seen that there is a change and there are different expectations, and the priorities in our society and the people in our society like you and me are changing. So from this place and from this point of view that our society changes rapidly and there is a lack of leadership, from that point, we give birth to students like you who I at least hope will pay attention to leadership skills and will close that gap that I see today in our world society. And where we're talking about leadership, the first question, of course, is what is leadership? And I'm going to start by defining what it actually is not. So leadership, in any case, is not our position in hierarchy. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that because you're a director of a company, you are a great leader. It doesn't mean that because you're number one on a candidate list for elections, you are necessarily a great leader. It doesn't mean that because you have been chosen or elected by the group of students with whom you work with to lead that group of people, that you're necessarily a great leader. It also doesn't mean power. It doesn't mean that, for example, somebody who is very high up in the police force is necessarily a good leader. It also does not mean, and it's not equal to management, because there is a difference between a manager and a leader. A manager is probably somebody who can manage the time really well. They can organize things really well, but it doesn't mean that that person is necessarily a good leader. It also doesn't mean, and is not equal to knowledge or skills, nor to a degree. Not because you finished, for example, university, doesn't necessarily mean that you're a good leader. So what leadership actually is, according to John Maxwell, who is one person or a great example on leadership and has written many books about it. Leadership is influence. And according to a recent article that I read recently, leadership is a process of social influence and not authority nor power, which maximizes the efforts of others towards achievement of a goal. What does this actually mean? This means that there must be influence within leadership. A leader must be able to have influence on other people so that these other people step into the best version of themselves, actually, and together they achieve a certain goal. Now, the basis of everything in our lives, and I want you to really remember this because it's super important, is communication. And how do we communicate? We communicate through having conversations. So great leaders are going to have more influence, greater influence, if they can communicate effectively. And we're going to take a look into this now. And I've got some technical problems anyways. Let me see. So communication. Communication is conversation, of course. This example is going to show you that when conversations don't go well. So this is a pure example where somebody is super irritated and actually lacks the skill of having a conversation or the skill of cooling down and paying attention at where he is at. And it shows us that, of course, the communication doesn't go properly. Now, as a leader, you cannot be doing this to the people that are underneath you or the people that you want to influence. I had another picture right here, but it doesn't want to load up. And that was exactly the opposite of this. So that picture showed people having a great conversation, and it showed them being happy and being in a state of relaxation and in a state of openness, where they're going to be able to listen to each other and to feel free to say what they want to. And that is what you want to achieve when you're exercising your function of a leader. Now, the first question is whether you think you can transform or change others. And why do we say this? Because we just saw that as a leader, you need to have some sort of influence of others. But does this actually mean that you can transform others, that you can change others? Do you have that power? Have you ever experienced that? And maybe you can write down in the chat box whether you have had experiences where you are in a situation and you have been able to change the behavior or the actions, the thoughts of your mother, for example, or your best friend or your boyfriend. Can you type in there for me whether yes or no, whether you think that you can change or transform other people? Actually, when we think about changing others, I just mentioned it could be your mom, it can be a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a friend, or a teacher. And what we actually notice is that in most of the times, it's difficult or it doesn't happen so often that we can actually change somebody else's behavior or personality or something like that. So what can we do? We only have the power to fully change and transform ourselves. And there was a recent study about this, which shows this very beautifully in this picture that I'm showing you right now. And here, this is in the sphere of a company, but we can also do this in the sphere of your own life. And we can see that for you to transform yourself, that it has the highest impact and the most possibility. If we compare a situation where you can either transform or change a peer, where you can, which is 20% only, where you can change or transform somebody who has a subordinate. That means somebody who has who is probably, in your example, younger than you. If you are in the second grade, for instance, and you're talking to your brother or sister who is 13 years old or 50 years old, you will only have a 5% capacity to be able to transform somebody else. And when we're talking about somebody who's higher up than you, for instance, your teacher, you're only going to have 20% possibility to do this. So the highest percentage you've got in transforming yourself. And therefore the key is actually taking responsibility for your own development and your own capacity to learn and therefore to transform yourself. We have this beautiful power which has been given to us, which is the power of transformation. And I'm convinced that we all have that power, and we need to pay attention to take responsibility and to say, you know what, I'm going to assist, for example, these type of workshops so that I can learn and that I can develop and transform myself. Why? Because that's going to make me a better person, actually. It's going to make me a better leader. It's going to improve my conversations, and it's going to improve my relationships with others, whether it's my sister, my mother, my teacher, and later on, when I start working, also with colleagues, which is going to be super important. So what is the invitation today? And from now onwards, for the rest of your life, really, the invitation is to simply become aware. I want to invite you to place a little camera in front of you, and to imagine that. You know, when you take these selfies, just like this, I want you to place such a camera, an invisible camera, on yourself, so that you start becoming aware of yourself. And in that sense, you are an observer of yourself. And that is the first step into transformation. Why? Because we cannot change or transform what we cannot see. We only have the power to change what is visible to our eyes or what is in our realm of awareness. Now, what does that mean? If I'm not aware that I'm super stubborn, that I'm a stubborn person. So if I'm not aware that I'm a stubborn person, then I'm not going to be able to change that. I'm not going to be able to have a conversation with somebody else and know that now it's time to let go and maybe accept somebody else's thoughts or somebody else's leadership or somebody else's advice. But when I place this camera in front of me and I start noticing that I start becoming stubborn in a subject, and that is making my life difficult, that is creating pain, or it's creating frustration for myself or for others, only after I get that awareness, then I can intervene and I can start changing that and letting go, for instance. So we can only change what we can see. How do we do that? I'm going to go shortly into this because, as I said in the beginning, we're not going to talk today about how we're going to achieve the transformation. But I want you to become aware of these three spheres through which you can achieve that transformation. I just want you to know that these exist. So the first one is posture. We can start changing ourselves by the simple fact of changing our posture. So how do we carry ourselves? If we're here, even here, for example, if I take me as an example, if I'm going to sit here and I'm going to be like this, and I'm going to explain to you, what it is that I'm talking about, and I'm not even looking at the camera, and it just looks really boring, and nobody's ever going to listen to me. And if I want you to cooperate with me in a project, you will probably not feel very inspired if I would just, sit and do that. But if I just sit with a straight back, with an open chest, you will immediately feel a different energy. You will be feeling invited to what it is that I'm saying. You will want to listen a lot more. So that's number one. Number two, emotions. Our world changes depending on our emotions, and they color our world or they make it darker. Now, in one of the next slides, we're going to see that most of us actually are not even aware what our emotions are. Our repertoire of emotions is very, very narrow. And what do I mean by that? We only know that we're happy, usually, that we're angry, that we're sad. But there are tons of other emotions that exist. And if we're not aware of them, we don't know where we're at. We don't know what it is that we're feeling. And if we don't know what it is that we're feeling, we will also not be able to change it or transform it, because we cannot transform what we cannot see. I tipped a bit too fast. The last one was language. And language is part of our conversations. So the awareness is to pay attention on how it is that you're speaking, which words are you using, how it is that you're listening, and where do you use your silence? Because silence is also a very important part of the conversation. I'll get back to that in a minute. So our posture. What would you say if you would take a look at this picture with these two guys? What can you tell me about them? Does anybody just want to say, chat, put in the chat just 2 words of what it is that you notice in that picture? I invite you to do that. I challenge you to do that. I would say that these two guys actually don't look very motivated. They look maybe bored, maybe afraid. Maybe they just received a news which was very sad. So if these two guys would come up to your class when you're doing a project, and these are the two leaders of your project, would you feel inspired to work with them? Yes or no? Would you be influenced by them and their ideas on a certain topic? No. Okay, I totally agree with you. I would also not feel inspired. So this is what our posture does. But when you look at the other lady here in this picture, now that is also a posture, and it's, what does it tell you? Would you feel inspired to work with her? I feel excited when I look at the picture. I don't know what she's doing, but I want to be part of that group if I would have to choose. She's motivated, I'll work with her. Shami, yes. She seems joyful, so yes. I agree with you guys. And this is how important your posture is. And definitely when we're talking about leadership, this is how important your posture is. So, you know, we're busy with elections right now, and you may follow them, you may not follow them. I would like you to pay attention on the posture of the pictures of the leaders that you're seeing on the social media, actually. I think that's very interesting for you. And maybe when you see them on television, what posture do they have? Do they have an open chest, and are they standing straight? Or are they looking up? Or do they have a posture which seems to be maybe a little insecure or fearful? Or what do you see? So just to make a mental note and just start paying attention around you. And first and foremost, most importantly, start paying attention at your own posture. When I'm in class, how am I sitting? Am I sitting down with a straight spine or not? Do I look interested or not? All right. These are the emotions. So from these pictures illustrate how these people feel, right? In one of them, we see this lady with tears in her eyes, and she looks very sad to me. The other lady with her hands like this, in my opinion, looks very worried. The other guy with the suit seems to have received a very sad, probably a very sad news. He's crying. You can see a tear going down his face. So the invitation is to pay attention to your own emotions. And also start noticing whether you can figure out how other people may feel. But most importantly, how do you feel? And when we talk about the emotions, we need to start understanding that there's so many emotions that we can be in. There is anxious, miserable, nervous, bored, happy, surprised, fear, sad, confused, skeptical, unsure, encouraged, hesitant, perplexed, glad, pessimistic, tense, joyful. So the invitation is to create the awareness of, I woke up this morning. How am I feeling when I wake up? How am I actually feeling? Because if I don't know how I'm actually feeling that morning, I will not be able to change that. I will not be able to transform that. The language. The language is the third of the spheres through which you can achieve the transformation. And to start creating this awareness, I would love for you to start paying attention on what it is that I say. Which words am I using? Do I talk in a positive sense, or am I being negative? When I talk to my friends, for example, I used to be a person myself who used to think in a negative note, meaning that I would tell a friend of mine, you know, today I'm not sad. Okay. And I had never understood what I was saying, well, until I started placing this camera in front of me to observe myself. And more I started noticing I was doing this thing of, no, I'm not afraid. Well, if I'm not afraid, what am I done then? If I'm not sad, what am I? What is it that I am? I'm happy. So I want to encourage you to do the same. Start just being aware of which words do you use, which type of sentences, with yourself or with others. Secondly, how you listen. Listening is part of a conversation, and it's super important. Now, when I start listening to somebody else, do I stop after 2 words that they have started talking, and then I start thinking on the problem that I have with my boyfriend or what my mom told me before I left home? Or am I trying to prepare my answer because I'm so nervous on the fact that I don't know what to answer, what to say? When the teacher or the professor starts asking me a question, do I actually listen to the full question, or am I starting to prepare the answer before he or she has finished? And when am I silent? So do I use silences in my conversation, yes or no? So the invitation again is pay attention, pay attention, pay attention to yourself and to these 3 points within a conversation. So after we create awareness, we must increase the effectiveness of our conversations. If we want to be great leaders, if we want to be great friends, if we want to be great students, we have to be able to have effective conversations. Our conversation skills have to be excellent, because that is the basis of our lives. That's the basis of all the relationships that we have. And that's a very important tool of a leader, because we influence through our conversations. We inspire through our conversations. We delegate our task through our conversations. What we're having here today is a conversation. And if I'm not able to speak in an effective way, then you will not be able to understand me. So another invitation. The first one was to become an observer, to create awareness of what it is that your posture is, or what it is that I'm feeling, of what it is, how it is that I'm talking, how it is that I'm listening, which words am I using, when do I use the silence in a conversation. The second invitation is to understand that we're all different. We're all fully unique, completely unique. There is no such thing as two Carolinas. There is no such thing as two Isabellas, as two Kyras. We're unique. And what does that actually mean in this context? It means that we observe, we see the world from our own unique lenses. Why is that? Because we have grown up with different backgrounds. I grew up in Colombia until I was 10 years old, and I grew up with that culture, with that language. I come from a family which has very close relationships. I am an immigrant. I've had to work extremely hard to be able to learn other languages. So my opinion about a topic is going to be different than somebody who has not experienced that. So when I have stepped into a conversation, when you step into a conversation, you need to understand that in order to have an effective conversation, you need to respect the other person as a unique human being. You need to respect somebody else's position because they interpret life in a different way than you do. And to show this, I would love to do this exercise with you. And I really invite you to take a look at this. So how would an alien describe a human being? If you are an alien, and please fill something in the chat, because this is super fun. If you would be an alien, how would you describe a human being? So here is one picture of a human being, right? How would you describe it? For instance, what I see here, I see flesh, I see muscles mainly, right? There are some organs. I see a nose, I see some eyes. I think I see some vessels or tendons. That's a human being. Somebody once told me that a human is a person who has a lot of emotions. They can get angry, they can get sad, they have family relationships, they may be individualistic or have a thought of being very much inclined to take care of others. And so like this, that we see that even though we all are aliens right now, and we're looking at the same picture or at the same object, which is a human, we all have different perspectives. Flesh and bones with a conscience is something completely different than a human who has different relationships, who is emotional, who is caring, who may be individualistic, and so on. And the fact of the matter is then, who is right when they give the description? What I want you to take with you is that no one can claim that there is only one truth. And that is extremely clear from this exercise. You may stand at the right, we see here in this illustration, a 6 or a 9. And depending on which side you stand, you're going to have a different take on life. You're going to have a different take on that event or that incident. And the one who sees a 6 is not necessarily wrong, but the one who sees a 9, neither. So why do I say this? It's because we need to understand that we're all different, because we have a different history, because we have different fears, different motivation, different aspirations, different backgrounds. We were born maybe in different countries. But one thing is sure, and that is that once we understand this, we will be able to accept other people with more respect and to carry conversations which are more understanding, to ask more questions on why it is that somebody else sees a certain topic from a different perspective. And so it creates more awareness. So the invitation is to analyze the conversation and to treat each other with respect. That is what it is for now. Maybe in other sessions, we will get into how do we analyze, how do we ask questions to the other person to find out what moves and what makes them think like that, what makes them have a certain opinion. Why? Because that will make us better leaders. It will make us have more effective conversations. If somebody has a different opinion than I have, and I keep on asking why that is, and so on, I will be able to understand more. And either I'll be more open to learn, or we will get to a solution of whatever it is that we're discussing in a better way. So we're getting to the end of the presentation of today. And to close, to start wrapping up, observe, really observe what your posture, emotions, and language are saying. When you find yourself at home, having a conversation with your mom, or in the university with one of the other students, or with the teacher, for instance. Because only after we start noticing all of this, it is that we can start taking the next step. It is that we can start making time for a change. And then the next question for you to keep in mind is, what do I want these to say? What do I want the posture, the emotions, and the language to say? So what is then required of us after we have understood what our posture is and may be saying, how do I feel at some point in time? How am I speaking? Which words am I using? How am I listening? The next step is going to be starting a process of transformation of our inner being, of who we are in the inside. Because very often everything that we feel sometimes is a reflection of who we are deep inside. And I'll give you an example of this just to close off. And an example that transformation is actually real and possible. So, and it doesn't matter what age you are at. And it's great that you're starting right now to create this awareness. Because in 10 years' time, if you continue developing yourself, you're going to be great leaders and you're going to be great professionals. And it's never too early nor never too late to do that. So just to give you an anecdote and evidence that transformation is possible. When I started my process of transformation, and when I was in the middle of it during my certification program, it was required and asked of us to, for 2 days long, to take a notebook and write down what our emotion was every other hour. So as we woke up, how did we feel? And then after every other hour, we had to make notes again. So I was, this was 3 years ago, and I noticed that as I woke up, I felt nervous. And it had never in my life occurred to me that that was the emotion that I was waking up with. After an hour and a half, I noticed that I felt panic. After another hour and a half, I felt anxious. And as I continued the day, I started noticing that I had all of these emotions and feelings that I had never paid attention ever to. And it was only because I started getting that awareness that I was able to afterwards change it. So when I noticed that I was feeling nervous and anxious, I started asking myself, what created that? Well, it was because I needed to draft emails which were perfect. And I needed to give advices to my clients which were perfect, which I thought were perfect. And I was so afraid to fail. I was so afraid to make one little mistake that it was creating all of this anxiety and this panic within me. And it's something which, of course, is not healthy. I was feeling tired. I wasn't feeling great. So after I noticed this, I was able to change it. And after I noticed this, I was able to ask myself questions as, why am I actually so afraid to fail? Is this even real? Am I going to fail? And if I looked at my history, I always worked very hard not to. So there wasn't any evidence in my history that I was going to fail. So I could start changing these thoughts, and I could start changing my emotion. But it all started with the creation of awareness, with understanding what I feel, with understanding on my posture, with understanding what type of language I was using. So I'm going to leave you with this quote in Spanish, which was written by Rafael Echeverria, which is the founding father of a type of coaching, which is ontological coaching. He was born in Chile, and it says, la manera como vemos las cosas es simplemente la manera como las vemos. Translated, the way we see things is simply the way we see them. And it's nothing more than that. So I would like to close this space. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being here, for putting yourself first, for investing your time in yourself. And I can assure you that it's the best investment that you're ever going to make in your whole life is investing in yourself, because nobody can take that away from you.